Hey everybody in internet land, this is the Mother Brain of the Mother Brain Files, and I'm here today to talk about my predictions for this year's WWE Summerslam. And while I'm not too thrilled with the direction that the company has been in as of late, it seems like this could well be an interesting card. And while the matches are obviously being designed to lure us in, I do think that it may be worth the money for the sake of the outcomes of these matches. So let's get right down to it. But our dark match, Santino Marella versus Antonio Cesaro. I'm going to go with Cesaro. You know, I just don't give a shit about Santino Marella, despite the Jeremy Lin push that he's been getting as of late. Although it's not even really been pushed so much anymore, you know, because Jeremy Lin's now with the Rockets. I'm going to go with Cesaro. It's R-Truth and Kofi Kingston versus the Primetime Players, Titus O'Neil and Darren Young. The Primetime Players have been kind of on a hot streak as of late, as the WWE has been trying to rebuild their tag team division. Of course, this particular team is probably going to be hurt for a little while because of the fact that their manager, AW, just recently got fired over some rather inappropriate comments, but that's another subject for another day. It's definitely going to be back and forth. I do see it as the starting match of the evening, and it's going to be very athletic, you know, and it's going to be very much two guys who are somewhat of high flyers as far as Kofi Kingston and R-Truth are concerned, and you have your primetime players that are more about quickness and strength. And I don't even want to compare them to the Hart Foundation, but there's some similarities there. But if I had to choose, I do see the primetime players taking the titles. I think Truth and Kofi have had the belts for a little too long, and they need to reignite the spark in the tag team division, so a nice title change would probably do. The Intercontinental title match, The Miz versus Rey Mysterio. I gotta say, I'm not the biggest Miz fan, and I do think he's been knocked down a few pegs since his return, probably by a lot. To go from headlining WrestleMania last year all the way to now being the Intercontinental Champion sounds like a big demotion in my opinion, and even the same for Rey Mysterio, who's been out for like almost a whole year. If I had to choose between those two, I gotta go with The Miz. I think it would be too soon for him to lose the title. They have to reestablish him as a presence in the company. And on top of that, I think Rey Mysterio is pretty much in the twilight of his career at this point. You know, he's not exactly on the high list in terms of the WWE officials. And I just don't see him getting another big title reign like that for quite some time. So I'm going to go with The Miz on this one. Dolph Ziggler versus Chris Jericho. And this is kind of interesting as far as Jericho, who didn't want to be a babyface ever again, just finds himself in this particular babyface spot. And I gotta say, it's one of those matches that I'm not too thrilled with the build-up, but I do think it's going to be pretty exciting. Ziggler is definitely on the rise right now, and with the Money in the Bank title in his possession, I think this is definitely going to elevate him in terms of not just his match quality, because he does do great matches, but Jericho, who is known for bringing out the best out of his opponents, can really bring Dolph Ziggler to a much greater level of potential main event status. But once again, if I had to choose between these two, I gotta go with Jericho simply because he has been on somewhat of a losing streak since his return earlier this year, and it's been kind of underwhelming, and they've acknowledged that on television. So with the fact that he has to go back on tour with Fozzy soon, I think they'll give him at least one small win for the sake of, you know, just a thank you, I guess. But the match will still, I think, be hot enough for Ziggler to not lose his momentum, as the Money in the Bank briefcase is still in his possession. So I'm going to go with Jericho on this, but I won't be surprised if it's the other way around too. Kane versus Daniel Bryan. Sadly, the one match I'm not looking forward to, despite the fact that Daniel Bryan, in my opinion, is one of my favorite wrestlers right now. And he has really been on a real hot streak as of late. You know, now dropping the yes, yes, yes chants to no, 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 and obviously the guy's going a little bit nuts because of AJ being the GM. Particularly, I'm not thrilled about the match because I feel like Kane has been underwhelming as well since his little reboot earlier in the year. Now he's just basically the Kane of old. I do think I'm going to go with Daniel Bryan because they have to build up some legitimate heels in the main event scene on Raw, and Daniel Bryan undoubtedly is garnering so much heat from the fans. But also, I mean, there's obviously guys like us that will love him no matter what. But as far as like the kids and the women, he's not exactly a fan favorite right now. But I don't see what Kane can gain from a win over Bryan. So I think Daniel Bryan's going to take it. Whether Charlie Sheen is involved or not, I have my doubts at this point. Maybe he'll be in the crowd. Maybe he'll distract him on some sort of tout bullshit on the Titantron. I don't know. But the fact is, I have to go with Daniel Bryan simply because he needs to get that push back into the main event scene. The World Heavyweight Championship match, Sheamus versus Alberto Del Rio. I'm going to go with Sheamus. He's not losing the belt anytime soon. He's pretty much, not John Cena level, but, because of his look, his physique, and, kind of like having his character be a throwback to the characters we used to grow up with in the 80s. I think he's going to be champion for quite a bit, and they're going to probably save him for Wade Barrett or someone else major to feud with. Del Rio, I think, is just filler for him right now. Just like a potential threat, but not really anything superb. And plus, Del Rio's kind of riding on thin ice in the back from what I hear. So it's got to be Sheamus. He's going to retain the World Heavyweight Championship. The WWE Championship match, CM Punk, John Cena, and The Big Show in a triple threat match. This is obviously where anything could potentially happen here. Lately, we've been seeing CM Punk kind of ride the tweener level of superstar status, and it was unfortunately and fortunately a necessary thing for him to do because of the fact that he's been so regulated by John Cena headlining matches with The Rock and Brock Lesnar and even, of all people, John Laurinaitis. And he's not the champion, CM Punk is, but they're not treating him as the main guy. So, of course, he has an absolute right to be pissed off and basically not give a damn about either guy. So, he's not really a full-blown heel, but he's not the baby face that was cracking jokes and, getting into these over-dramatic feuds with Chris Jericho over, his family having drug problems and all that. This is the CM Punk, almost close to what he was last year, but not quite. If I have to choose between the three men, sadly I gotta probably say John Cena's gonna probably escape by, simply because he hasn't been getting the upper hand as of late in these little episodes that have been going on the past couple weeks, even going as far back as the Raw 1000th episode. And Punk's been a champion for quite a while, so, his reign has already surpassed some of the earlier reigns of Hulk Hogan and Bret Hart, and I think that Punk has to go back to being the guy that was crawling his way to the top, as opposed to being at the top but not exactly being treated as the main guy. So I expect Cena to probably win the belt, and maybe Punk snaps and puts him in the Anaconda Vice or does a GTS on him, and it's going to be a mixed reaction any way you look at it. The pro-Cena fans are going to obviously boo Punk, and the anti-Cena fans are going to go crazy for Punk. Finally, the big money-making match of the night, Triple H versus Brock Lesnar. As we saw on Raw, we had Lesnar beat the holy hell out of Shawn Michaels to build up the personal rivalry between the two men. But to be quite honest, I gotta say it has not been the greatest build-up, simply because of the fact that Lesnar already came back with a lot of fanfare only to lose to John Cena at Extreme Rules. And now you have him in a feud with Triple H. And let's face it, Triple H may be the next in line to run the company, but he's not exactly the best guy when it comes to trying to tell a good story, simply because of the fact that lately, whenever he comes back to do a feud, his feuds have been so inconsistent. Whether it was the feud with Kevin Nash or even the build-up with Undertaker at this past year's WrestleMania, where it's just like, video packages, and one week they may not be there, the next week they're going to be there, and and I understand, yes, that Brock Lesnar's under a specific contract that they have to use him for a certain number of dates, but even so, that really does hurt the build up to these matches. And I mean, I could sympathize with like what John Cena was saying earlier in the year with The Rock about, oh, you're not here every week, you don't show up, and you're pissing off the fans. But it's really more about Triple H, and if Triple H was the one that was feeding Cena those punchlines, it really falls back on Triple H because of the way he's trying to still be that part timer while also working his way up the ladder in the back. In the end, I don't see any particular outside interference. I don't see Shawn coming out and super kicking Lesnar. I don't see any of that. I think it's going to be a knockdown, drag-out fight, and in the end, I have to go with Brock Lesnar because there's just no way that they're going to have the guy lose 2 matches since his return. And, if you're going to build him up to face Rock again, or if you're going to build him up with Cena all over again, or whoever, CM Punk, Randy Orton, is anybody going to truly believe that this guy can beat anybody, regardless of the fact that he's been in UFC for so long, since he left the WWE. So that's my predictions for SummerSlam this year. You can check us out at Coast Blog, and yeah, we'll hopefully be back to do more of these, maybe even a video blog on my underrated actors page, and hopefully more to come very soon.